voice, my public voice, as well as my private voice, and when I get to speak with the president.
Okay, and you do get to speak with the president and I don't, so that's important that you deliver that message, so we appreciate it.
Oh, and by the way, on the behalf of Cenk from TYT, I just want to say that we probably shouldn't have more war. He wanted me to tell that to you, Mr. President. Want to interview a sitting congresswoman, even if we have a couple points of contention, when we can find ground that we can both work on, and that happens to be anti-war stuff, right?
Hi, thanks for having me tonight.
No problem. So normally we disagree a lot, and you've seen some of that. But tonight we're going to talk about something that we might have in common, and I want to get a little bit of information about what's happening on the inside in Washington, and see if we can maybe prevent a war. So the two sides coming together here on what I hope is a good.
I mean, what better person to speak to than a white supremacist Christian nationalist about making things less scary? Yes, I'm sure she's got some great ideas, perhaps about how the California wildfires get started every year.
Good mission. So let's start on Iran. I'm worried about a war with Iran. It appears you're worried about a war with Iran. Do you know where it stands today within the Trump administration? Because you and Tucker Carlson and others seem so concerned that it makes me more concerned.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I just want to thank you for having me on your show tonight. I think it's incredibly important that we find common ground as Americans. And that's never a bad thing, even when we do disagree on other issues. So thank you so much. I have been very concerned, and I'll tell you why. A little bit of my background. I'm one of those Americans that are really sick and tired of the narrative that we're constantly told that we're supposed to hate some country that's overseas, that maybe we've never been to. We don't know anything about that country, but we're told that they're the greatest threat to our freedoms and our democracy, and that we have to go to war with them.
I wish we had some counter of how many times she's brought up Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Boko Haram. Like how many times she's brought up different groups to use the justification for, again, usually the intervention of America into the business of other countries. But that's different because, again, we're talking about terrorist organizations. They're very, very evil. We're simply, assisting in stopping terrorism. So that's totally fine. But I don't get why. Like some people, they really want us to just hate certain countries for no reason. And we should be all hating China. China is the real enemy, the one true enemy of the United States.
Saw this, we'll go back to Vietnam. We went to Vietnam and we lost thousands and thousands of American soldiers, and we lost that war. We went into Iraq. We were told we were to look for weapons of mass destruction. Well, we didn't find any, but we ended up being stuck in the Middle East for a long time, and then ended up in Afghanistan looking for Osama bin Laden, and he wasn't there either. And then we were told that the oil in the Middle East would make us rich, and we were told that rare earth minerals in Afghanistan would also make us rich. Well, that didn't. We're $36 trillion in debt. And for me, I'll just be really direct. I'm unapologetically for our country, the United States of America, and I want to fix our problems here.
Do you have any idea how dangerous this fucking is to, again, have a Christian nationalist coming on your show, and now you're trying to basically pacify your audience to the idea that she could be an extremist by being like, I mean, like, did you hear her? She's raising a lot of points that I think you lefties kind of agree with, right? Like, I mean, you guys were against the Iraq War. You guys were against the illegal occupation of Afghanistan. That sounds like she is too.
At home, and I believe that's what everyone's hard-earned tax dollars.
Some people got rich. Oh, absolutely, some people got rich. Mostly private corporations and companies. Again, if it's like, well, we were promised a whole bunch of minerals, and it's like, yeah, did you think that meant you personally? Were they going to drop off some gemstones in the front of the porch and be like, here's your percentage, your tax dollars went into us evading Iraq, and so, here you go, a little bit of crude oil
really
for you.
Supposed to be used for, and I just don't buy the narrative anymore. We've been told for years and years and years, I'm longer than I can remember, that Iran is on the verge of having a nuclear weapon, but we continually ignore the ones that have nuclear weapons, like India, Pakistan. They're actually, starting a war with each other right now. What about North Korea? They have nuclear weapons. China, Russia, we have nuclear weapons. Many countries have nuclear weapons, but yet the problems that I see and the people that I know deal with problems like drug addiction and overdose. Mental health is a great concern in America today. And we've really got to do something to make everything affordable for every single person that lives in this country. And here's the bottom line. My job title is United States House of Representatives. I'm a representative for the United States, for Georgia. Georgia's 14th district. And that means that we've got to focus here at home instead of worrying about running off and going to another war, another foreign war that we don't belong in.
Yep. Okay, we're living very interesting times because a lot of people on the left say don't even have Marjorie Taylor Greene on, and if you do, you got to yell at her, et cetera. And so we asked our audience, Representative Greene, on our website tyt.com whether we should have you on, and it looks like, what is that? 82% say yes. And here you are. And once you come on, it turns out, oh wait, you agree with us on Iran?
And then once you come on, you realize, hey, based on what we specified earlier before our conversation, that there are ways to, I guess, pacify people as to how extreme you might be and make them realize that perhaps your message is a little bit more universal than they previously thought. Yeah. So you're not a raging racist, Christian nationalist, spreads anti-Semitic conspiracies, says a lot of horrifying things about LGBTQ plus people. You just don't want forever wars. You're anti-neocon. The left can get on board with that, right?
And by the way, you agree with us on Vietnam and Iraq. So if we can actually prevent a war together, that would be amazing. So, but now
also, does she? You did not push back or ask any questions. All she said was, we went to Vietnam, we lost the war, a lot of people lost their lives. We went into Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction. Those weapons weren't there. Maybe you could unpack that a bit. And speak to me about what you think was the center of the conflict, why exactly the United States was involved in Vietnam, what are proxy wars, what was going on during the heights of the Cold War, why do you think that the United States would say invade Iraq a second time, and what the benefit would be that to the U.S. Geopolitically? You spoke about rare earth minerals, resource extraction. What do you say about that as well?
Talk about, yes, but how deep is it right now? Like, I know for the Iraq war, they did a lot of propaganda, and Young Turks been around forever. We're the longest running show in internet history. And so we were on the air for the Iraq war. And at the time, Ben Mankiewicz and I were like, no, don't go. They didn't attack us, right? But they built up a lot of propaganda before they went in and did.
Well, why is it dangerous if she's anti-war? First off, I don't believe she is anti-war, to be completely fair. And yet you can't really, in this case, separate the art from the artist without actually bringing up like the history of all the things that she said, right? From spreading a ton of conspiracies, including anti-Semitic conspiracies about different groups that she believes are mostly Jewish, that started the California wildfires using some kind of technology that involves space lasers and stuff like that. Her being one of the prominent promoters of anti-mask, anti-vax conspiracies, stuff surrounding that. One of the most prominent figures in causing harm towards LGBTQ plus people, normalizing anti-LGBTQ plus hate. She essentially blames all of society's ills on trans people's existence. She thinks that trans people aren't real and somehow an abomination that threatens children. Likely is a hateful publicity stunt. She filmed herself yelling loudly about this topic in a public library. She's also harassed her office neighbor, Mary Newman, because Newman had put up a trans pride flag in support of her daughter. Greene referred to Newman's daughter as her biological son. Rude. About a year later on InfoWars, Greene called for violence against trans people to protect cis women and girls. She also claimed that trans children are being groomed by their parents. On and on and on. Oh yeah, I mean, I haven't even brought up her association with human trafficking, fucking pedophile rapist, but he might be one of the next guests on TYT, so I don't want to bury the lead there. Oh yeah, the weather machines. That one was recent. I forgot about that. Saying that the Democrats under Joe Biden have the ability to control the weather, and that's why everything that was happening to Florida, like Hurricane Helen was taking place, or Hurricane Milton, and then all of a sudden that just went away. As soon as Trump becomes president, the weather machines no longer have any. Maybe Trump doesn't use them. There could be that. Despite her prior conspiratorial ranting against alleged pedophiles, Greene hired pedophilia apologist Milo Yiannopoulos as her congressional intern in 2022, allegedly unpaid, but possibly making $35,000 a year. I mean, just the amount of shit goes on and on. This is not in any way like a moderate figure. We wanted to bring on a moderate conservative Republican just to see if we could finally find and share some ground on how we both oppose war, right?
The attack. In this case, it looks like there's some significant drama, moving of the chairs around in the Pentagon, and the National Security Advisor group. So do you have a better sense of how close we are to war right now?
Well, there was a development today. I've been constantly saying for several weeks now, I've never seen a Houthi or a Houthi or however you pronounce it. I don't even know what they look like. I haven't seen them back home in Rome, Georgia, where I live. I haven't seen them in Washington, D.C. And I keep saying that, how is this a threat to everyday Americans when they are not threatening us here at home in our homeland? And I think this narrative broke through, and I was excited to see President Trump say today from the White House during one of his press conferences that there has been communication with the Houthis, with Yemen, and they have decided that they have said they won't bomb ships anymore. And President Trump said, well, we will not bomb the Houthis. So I think that that's significant, and I was very happy to hear it. But I also think it was important to speak out, and I thought it was important to remind everyone here in Washington that always seems to forget the campaign promises that are made on the campaign trail. That the biggest part of this campaign, one of them, was no more foreign wars, no matter which country it is. We don't want to go to war for Ukraine. We don't want to go to war against Iran. I don't think we should be fighting wars on behalf of Israel, and many Americans agree with that. So I was pleased to see President Trump's announcement today that there had been communication, and they said no more bombs.
So look, first, credit where credit is due. When Netanyahu asked him to bomb Iran and Trump didn't, about a week or 2 weeks ago, I was very happy about that, and I gave Trump credit for that. And now you're, reporting more good news about, not bombing Yemen anymore. If we'll see if that holds. But Representative Greene, we're having these conversations because
I mean, first off, they look like human beings. We're asking, what do Houthis look like? I don't even know. Human beings. You could start there. Second part, Cenk, you might want to tell her that he's indiscriminately bombing civilians as well. That's kind of important because just the framing actually supports American imperialism. If you're going to sit there and be like, well, they've been specifically bombing Houthi terrorist cells, locations strategically, and there hasn't been mass casualties as far as we can understand it, and and now he's going to stop because Trump won because he's benevolent.
Trump administration is filled with neocons. If it wasn't filled with neocons, we wouldn't need this conversation. He said anti-war. You're very clear about that. You're super clear about that. I'm clear about it. But all of a sudden, we're having a conversation about how we might go to war. So how do you think the neocons got there, and how powerful do you think they are within the Trump administration?
Any single Republican who's been voting either in the House or the Senate for any of Trump's policies directing, where the money is going to be going in terms of government spending, 75% of Trump's budget is for the military and for the police. Here's the breakdown of where all that money is going. More spent on the Pentagon budget, $1.01 trillion than any president in history. Should have a real quick reality check as to, you can go in front of a camera if TYT is willing to platform you, and knowing that you're not going to get any fucking pushback whatsoever, and sit there and be like, I'm actually anti-war. I just don't want more wars, and I would rather we worked more on domestic issues. So what are you spending all your money on domestically? And whom are the majority of Republicans voting for in terms of passing a military budget? It seems like the Senate voted for more military
Administration.
Well, I would say they're powerful on both sides of the aisle, to be honest with you. We saw Democrats in the House and Senate vote overwhelmingly to fund the war in Ukraine. And we saw Republicans do the same thing in the House and the Senate. So I would say this is not a one-party problem. This is a two-party problem. And this is also the military-industrial complex that is very, very powerful, because they keep, no matter what administration it is, they somehow find a way to get their foreign wars. However, I really give President Trump a lot of credit for standing up against this. And the announcement he said today was, I think, extremely significant. But we still have a long ways to go. And no matter who is president of the United States, it's the most powerful person in the world. That's who President Trump is right now. And everybody is texting him, calling him, and doing everything they can to get in the Oval Office or to somehow find time with him on the weekends. So I don't think they'll let up anytime soon. But I will say this, I think it's up to the American people to continue to voice their concerns and express what they want out of this government. And I think that's important no matter who's in charge. And so I hope we continue to have this conversation, and I hope we continue to just make sure what people want is said louder than the small minority here in Washington, D.C. that wants more foreign wars.
I'm going to move on to Israel in a little bit and free speech and all that, but a couple more on Iran here because it's so monumentally important. So look, John Fetterman's saying that we should bomb Iran right now. He's a Democrat. I'm deeply disappointed in him. Kamala Harris wrapped her arms around Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney during the campaign. I thought it was a disastrous idea. I said it many times. The neocons are not our friends. And if you're a Democrat and you're embracing neocons, it makes no sense. No ideological sense. It's not.
Christian nationalists are not your friends either. What the fuck is this? There is yet to be any pushback whatsoever. This whole thing is just acting as a normalization fucking routine for Marjorie Taylor Greene, the extremist.
Principled, it just makes, so if you want to say Liz Cheney did the right thing for about January 6 hearings, etc., probably we could debate that, but I understand that part. But don't go in a neocon direction. Now, having said all that, I'm being honest about it. if Trump does attack Iran, how disappointed will you be in Trump?
I don't see a need to attack Iran. I don't see a need or understand a
Didn't answer the
reason to
question.
attack Iran, and the American people don't want a war with Iran. For the past several years during the Biden administration, we saw our own borders overrun every single day. And I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, and I can't tell you how many stories, there are too many stories to even comprehend, from families who lost their family member to fentanyl poisoning or perhaps some other type of illegal alien crime or murder, whether it was a car accident or an actual rape and murder. And these are the stories I think we should be paying attention to. And this is what matters to me. Our border matters to me, and the American people matter to me. And that'll be my continued focus, and that will be my continued voice, my public voice, as well as my private voice, and when I get to speak with the president.
Okay, and you do get to speak with the president, and I don't, so that's important that you deliver that message. So we appreciate it, or at least I appreciate it. I'll speak for myself. And so one last thing on Iran. Look, Iran.
Jesus Christ, Cenk, have some dignity. No one is listening to you. The guy gets like a couple of replies by like Don Jr. and Elon Musk on Twitter, and he's like, finally, they are realizing the orthodoxy, and the woke left is trying to say that I'm too pure. Like, the fuck are you talking? These people are fascists. Like, Jesus Christ.
Was in basically a peace deal with us during the Obama years. And we got to take most of
I'm so sorry to say, she's not delivering shit. Oh, and by the way, on the behalf of Cenk from TYT, I just want to say that we probably shouldn't have more war. He wanted me to tell that to you, Mr. President.
uranium out of their country so they had no ability to develop nuclear weapons. I thought it was a great deal, and I criticize people on all sides, and I criticize Obama for a lot of things, but I thought that was actually one of his better accomplishments, keeping us out of the war and making sure Iran didn't get nukes. How about going back into that deal?
Well, I think a deal would be important, and perhaps that's what the Trump administration and President Trump is working towards. He's made that commitment that he doesn't want Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon, and so I'm sure there is a major effort there to make sure it doesn't happen. Here's the situation, though: is I'll go back to this. Unless Iran is directly attacking America, attacking the American people, I'm more of like, let's focus at home. We have tremendous problems here at home, as well as looking at other countries that we don't want to get sucked into their foreign wars. And Ukraine is another one that I think that we need to make sure that we stay out of. These are all of these countries, when we're talking about these geopolitical conflicts, these are places that have had conflicts, some of them longer than I've been alive. And I turn 51 at the end of this month. So whether it's the Middle East or, some kind of conflict over in Eastern Europe or wherever it is, I really think, for me, my main focus is, let's fix America. Let's fix it.
At any point, Cenk could have been like, so shouldn't we say the fuck out of Palestine and stop giving billions upon billions of dollars to Israel? Shouldn't we stop giving billions and billions of dollars in arms sales to Israel? Or shouldn't we even stop selling arms to Israel altogether? But no, none of that. Just, well, I mean, you'll tell Donald Trump when you speak to him about how we should have less war, right? Oh, yeah, I'll tell him, no more war.
Let's fix our problems, because our problems are quite significant.
Yeah. All right. So now a related issue, because I think the neocons got there because of campaign donations, and Israel has taken about $300 billion adjusted for inflation over their lifetime from America, or we've given it to them because they're a special ally, whatever that means. I don't know what it means. And so I actually said that the other day, and somebody on social media, right winger on social media, was like, "Hey, Grok, is that true?" And Grok was like, "Actually, it's a little higher. It's around $311 billion." So, do we have to keep giving money to Israel, or can we just say, hey, that's enough? You're a grown-up country.
See homeless veterans on our streets. It saddens me talking to senior citizens that can hardly afford to pay.
By the way, this is what's really important for something like this. If you ask a very specific question, and there's purpose behind it, right? Should we stop giving billions upon billions of dollars to, say, Israel while they're committing a genocide? You need to get specific answers, especially if she's going to be talking to the president on your behalf, Cenk. And in this specific case, it's like, okay, so what do you have to say about that? Her answer, once again, is very vague. And it's just like, I don't think that we should be giving money to any country, frankly. I think we should concentrate on domestic issues. I think we should be worried about here at home. And I want to make sure that we stop all of these unnecessary conflicts. And then you're like, but you've said virtually nothing in terms of anything you could hold someone accountable for. You've just given this raw general platitude, and now it makes Marjorie Taylor Greene seem even more rational and reasonable. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
rent or pay for their medications and food. I really think that our money needs to stay at home and fix our own problems. But I'd also like to remind you, it's both sides of the aisle. With the Ukraine war, even AOC voted to fund the.
Do you notice that like every single time she's been asked about any issue, she's brought it back to Ukraine, like without hesitation? I can see why there are so many blue anons who just sit there being like, oh my God, I knew it. This was the work of Vladimir Putin. She's basically his puppet. Look at that. She's puppeting his points right now. But it is kind of funny that like 3 times now he's specifically been like, I want to talk about a different part of the world, a different, conflict. And what do you have to say about that? Should we continue to support a country doing a genocide? Well, I think this is a both sides issue, and we should really bring up AOC, and we should also talk about how everyone voted for Ukraine. That's what's important now.
Ukraine war. It's Republicans and Democrats together, and the uniparty is real. It is definitely a real thing here in Washington, and they're driven to continue funding foreign aid and funding foreign countries and funding foreign wars. And I think that is. I don't know how to break that cycle. I do the best I can by being very vocal about it, as I'm one member of Congress out of 435. But I will continue.
Breaking good news, everyone. The University of San Francisco will divest from the defense companies supplying Israel, including Palantir, GE Aerospace, etc., by June 1st, following sustained pressure from student activists. The move comes after months of protests, including some recent library occupations renamed in the honor of Hossam Shabbat, Gaza journalist killed by Israel. While the USF insists the decision was planned, students say it resulted with negotiations and unrelenting pressure since last spring's encampments. Hell yeah. Power to the students for being on the right side of history, doing that sustained long enough to actually achieve material, tangible effects. That's incredible. You are all very, very brave, and you should be celebrated as heroes.
Urging that direction to go in.
So it's certainly bipartisan, yes. Both parties are very happy to give more and more money to Israel. I'm sure the fact that AIPAC was the #1 donor in this campaign cycle is just a coincidence, just randomly. It wouldn't affect it at all. I hear from mainstream media reporters that politicians don't care about money. But let's continue a little bit more, because Trump said this wild plan about how we were going to take over Gaza and we're going to.
She didn't answer any of your questions. She's just, well, I mean, yeah, that's that for you.
Own Gaza, and we were going to take care of the unexploded bombs for Israel in Gaza.
How much you want to bet she'll find a way to spin this back to Ukraine and Russia?
I assume you're against all that?
Yes, I'm not supporting that. I'm not interested in taking over some part of the Middle East. I'm unapologetically American, and I can't repeat that message loud enough and over again.
Because it has nothing pertaining to the question you were asked. Like, someone turns to me and is like, so how do you feel right now about, what some people are calling ethnic cleansing or genocide taking place and happening to Palestinians on the behalf of the Israeli army? Well, I'm a proud Canadian, and that I just got to say that through and through, and that's what I care about is Canada. I care about Canadian issues domestically, and that's why I think that liberals are the devil. Yeah. It's a great thing to just randomly say. It doesn't have anything related at all to the question I just asked you. They're not, but sure, yeah, it sounds great. Smile when you do it.
Again, we've got people in Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, and Northeast Georgia that their homes have still not been rebuilt from Hurricane Helene. Look at over in California, Malibu, where many people's homes were destroyed from the wildfires, and we could name different parts of the country, Lahaina, Hawaii, and on and on. And before we go in and try to clean up anybody else's mess, or pay for reconstruction in any country, whether it's Gaza or Ukraine, and I don't think we should be doing that either.
She got there. I was about to say, you know what? I thought I called her out a little too abruptly, because instead of relating that last question directly to Ukraine, she managed to do it about Hawaii. And then once again, well, Cenk, perfect opportunity to ask about Trump, FEMA funding, that kind of stuff, might be, at all pertinent to the thing she's talking about. But I don't know, she got back to Ukraine eventually too.
I think we should rebuild here in America and help Americans first.
All right, let's go to America and as these issues.
So I thought there would at least be like the mildest of pushbacks or anything. Just even that wasn't the question I asked you. There you go. I mean, sure, that's maybe a little confrontational. You could be like, okay, I just want to ask the question a second time because maybe you missed it, but I actually specifically wanted to talk about America's involvement in both fueling and funding the war, if you want to call it that. I personally think it's a genocide, but the current occupation of Palestinian territory, the ethnic cleansing that's taking place there, how Trump has specifically said that he wants to turn it into a casino resort and is now enacting plans to do so. The fact that there's extremist settlers who are currently setting their sights upon the Gaza Strip, talking about how it's going to be beautiful beachfront property, that kind of stuff. What do you have to say? And if she goes directly into the direction of, well, I'm a proud American, I want to talk about America first, and I want to talk about the fires in Hawaii and why no one will bring that up, well, then that's an opportunity to be like, you didn't answer the question at all, though. Because otherwise, what is this besides being free propaganda for Marjorie Taylor Greene? This is worse than what Gavin Newsom was doing.
Issues affect us here at home. So now people are getting snatched up off the streets. Mahmoud Halil, Öztürk, who wrote an op-ed against Israel, or criticizing the current Israeli government, and now they're arrested and potentially deported. And they were here legally on visas or as on green cards. Seems to be a direct attack on freedom of speech. What's your stance on those arrests?
Well, I think freedom of speech extends to Americans. I haven't really been vocal on any of those issues. That's been more some of my other Republican colleagues that have been addressing those issues. I think being an American citizen is a pretty special privilege. But if you're here on a visa or a green card, then I think you should be respectful towards America and the people that we stand with. And so if they've done something wrong, then I have no problem with them being deported.
Right. If it turns out that the reporting is accurate, and Öztürk as an example, the Turkish student up in Tufts, she just wrote an op-ed. Didn't do anything else, didn't say anything against America, just criticizing Israel and calling.
Well, we finally have it, a follow-up. All right, here we go. Hard-pressing journalism in action.
For an economic boycott. The Supreme Court has said that freedom of speech and our Constitution applies to everybody in the country, including resident aliens, that's legal aliens who have a green card, and people on visas. So it could corrode our freedom of speech if they're not allowed to criticize Israel. Does it bother you that it's just this one country that you're not allowed to criticize here in America, no matter what your status is?
Well, I definitely stand for people's free speech. That is something that I'm on record doing, even speech that I disagree with. Let me tell you, probably a lot of people watching the show have said horrible speech against me. Probably in my comments and all over social media, and probably on the show, you guys have probably said ugly speech against me. So
already we're not talking about the actual topic at hand. Amazing, just brilliant work. How in the world was Cenk ever going to survive this? You know, I mean, she's just a masterclass in being able to manipulate the very press that are giving her the hard-hitting questions. It's also wild that like Cenk was more aggressive towards Francesca than he was towards Marjorie Taylor Greene in terms of pushback. And that was about like, you're calling me mean names. Okay, I understand that you might find that insulting, Cenk, but I want to specifically explain to you what I feel that you are doing, especially and preemptively, basically directly doing apologia for a lot of the worst things that Trump is proposing to enact. I think that's really dangerous. You don't need to comply in advance. You realize you're complying in advance. We should be doing that. I am not doing that. You demand who is the most pure. You only care about who can be the most pure because you're the max left and you're an extremist. And that's why I want to bring on Marjorie Taylor Greene for a wonderful talk, discussion, if you will, and a beer afterwards, because that's what you got to do. You got to have a beer afterwards, you know, be frenzies.
Or either they're for Israel or they're against Israel. I don't lean into any of that. I think Israel is a country that's doing just fine on their own. They have a great economy. They certainly don't have the amount of debt that we have. They have their own nuclear weapons, and they've already demonstrated they have a very capable military. We have voted a lot of votes, a lot of resolutions against anti-Semitism in Congress. But for me and my public statements on this issue is that I would like to see in the House of Representatives, we need to be doing more votes and focusing on the agenda that we campaigned for and the American people voted for in November of 2024. And I would like to—
Cenk, this would have been a perfect opportunity to bring up the fact that like there were provisions in the anti-Semitism bill specifically for people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, so she would have protection to continue being a racist-ass Christian nationalist, where it's like, well, certain kinds of speech that may target Christian nationalists who want to say things like it was the Jews who killed Jesus, that needs to be protected. You could bring that up because that's really weird that apparently a bill that's supposed to target anti-Semitism anti-Semitism is supposed to provide provisions for anti-Semitic conspiracy theories specifically spread by Christian nationalists? Well, because after all, I mean, this isn't about censorship, right?
See us putting our country before other countries, and that's not a for or against or any of that stuff. I just think we need to focus on what the campaign was about.
Yeah. So look, you've taken a good deal of criticism on that issue of anti-Semitism, et cetera.
So I don't need to do anything.
And I get where it comes from. You know where it comes from. Having said that, I'll tell you my opinion in the last few years. For me, Israel's a foreign government. And so governments do things that are wrong all the time. I'm originally from Turkey. I'm a naturalized citizen here. And so do I like Turkey? Of course I do, right? But if Turkey's doing something wrong, I'm gonna call it out, right? And if we say, hey, you're not allowed to criticize Turkey, otherwise you'll, or boycott Turkey, otherwise we'll take away your government contracts, we'll arrest you, we'll deport you. I'd say that's outrageous, that's crazy. So, and that doesn't mean that you hate me as a Turkish American. That's also crazy. It just means the government is doing something wrong. So I think, I love our Jewish American brothers and sisters, and I think they're some of the best fighters for peace. And so to me, the issue of religion and the issue of a foreign government are completely separate. Do you agree with that?
Oh, of course. And you know what? Listen, I'm a Christian. My savior is a Jew, and that's Jesus. And so look, I have no problem with Israel. I think they're doing great. They're a great country, as well as many other countries are. And criticism about anything is something. I have a pretty good reputation of criticizing things that I think are wrong. And you referenced where I've been accused of anti-Semitism, but that was
right there. It's happening live in real time. Cenk, you could say something right now that you're directly associating Israel with all Jewish people. She's doing it in front of you. It just happened. You could bring that up. That would be a point. You could be like, well, I think it's a little unusual for you to associate all people from Israel with all Jews and the actions of a foreign government with, again, an entire group and ethnicity. I think that's itself anti-Semitic, but
was a headline and it was not the actual story. So you may have your facts wrong there on that. I'm not anti-Semitic. Not a single bone in my body is anti-Semitic. As a matter of fact, I think.
And you know what sucks is that, like, he never uses an opportunity to be like, well, I mean, maybe because there is some confusion surrounding this, you've been accused of spreading conspiracy theories involving, quote, Jewish space lasers, which you say are unequivocally not true. If we look at the actual Facebook post, can I read it out for you now? Because, again, you mentioned that there were Rothschild machines that could direct light from space, that could start it potentially. I mean, you may not have used the phrasing that some people have accused you of, but it's pretty clear what you're saying here. It definitely seems like you're spreading an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
I think that one of the problems is in this country is constantly accusing people of all kinds of hate, whether it's anti-Semitism, racism, being homophobic, all of these things. I think that what we need to focus on is that we're all people and making sure that we remember that humanity is something that.
Where is all this attitude when it comes to LGBTQ plus people? Oh no, then they're sinful degenerates that need to be purged from society. But I mean, if it's protecting racists, oh yeah, well then it's all like, we have to come together, give peace a chance. Where's the love? Come on, don't do cancel culture.
It's extremely important. And that's why we're having this chat tonight, is because we're both against all of these wars. And we need to make sure that we can take a stance in America that we don't.
You know what's like unbelievably pathetic about this is that this isn't even like the lowest it's going to be, because this is just basically a preview of what direction TYT is headed in. I mean, I hope there's at least comments
Congress,
from
media, etc.
Excellent interview. Not a fan of any way of MTG, but I believe her when she says she has no firm of no wars and choice. Honestly, this was disappointing. Lack of pushback and follow-ups from most obvious lies was so disappointing from you, Cenk. She offers zero accountability. It's all both sides. Fuck her duplicity. I got the intent to bring in opposing sides to talk, but just got attacking a guest isn't going to get you much of a discussion. He did let her spin a bit and avoid answering a question or two. It's a balance game. I 100% agree with Madge on the issues and the neocons. When she's saying outrageous stuff for her base, I can't deal with her. Of course, you are the biggest grifters. Interviewing this lunatic when you refuse to talk to Sam. Give me a break. TYT is sold out. What's next? Hearing what Mike the Pillow Guy thinks about foreign policy. Oh, that's coming. Oh, you just wait. That's definitely next on the docket.
It's my choice to make, and I just have to give it some good thought.
Okay, that seems like a wide open door. That's my interpretation of that answer. Okay, and finally, you once did, speaking of people, us fighting back and forth, which we've done a lot. I don't
think I've ever fought with you. Have I ever fought back and forth with you?
Oh,
I don't think so.
No,
this
overall
is so
with the
cute.
network, right?
Oh,
Because
look at
you did do a mean tweet about damage report. That's
To see, they're not fascists. Yeah, she wants to eradicate trans people from society, but like she does it with a smile, and at the end of the day, she cares about America first, and she might be anti-Semitic, but at the end of the day, she says she's not, so that doesn't really matter. And she's against the wars, except for the fact that she has a lot of stock in a bunch of, companies that profit handsomely from war. You might say that she's a war profiteer, in fact. But yeah, don't read too much into that. At the end of the day, it's kind of weird that legislators would also have the ability to generate lots of money from immense human suffering in other countries. That's all not... Well, you know what? We're friends, have a beer, smile. It's great.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This video wouldn't be at all possible without the financial support of all the people whose names you see on the screen right now. And if you want to unlock secret bonus episodes, content that we can't post anywhere else, or get the videos early before anyone else gets to see them, please go on to patreon.com/theserfs. For as little as $1, you can help support this channel and help make more videos like this possible. Our executive producers are Anna Loves Riley, Adrian McCarthy, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Garrett Sandoval, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Boehm, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Tigwick, Trav, and Words Greenwood. And also, it wouldn't be possible without all the names you see on the screen right now. Again, if you want to help produce this content, it's only made possible through the funding of our patrons. Head on down to patreon.com/theserfs. That's patreon.com/theserfs.